Alright folks, in this video we're going to go over my top 10 prepping items, things that you probably already have in your house. So let's take a look at it. Hey folks, Mike with Thrifty Prepper here, and in this video we're going to talk about kind of a way of getting started with prepping. It can be daunting at first and people can feel like you have to spend a lot of money in it. So in this video I'm going over the top 10 things that are essential prepping items, things that you probably already have in your house. I know I did. I checked in my closets and my pantries and I already had a lot of these. So these are things that, again, you already have them in your house. It's no cost to you. So it's a great way to get started. It's also a great way to kind of reinforce what you're doing if you're looking to get into it. So let's get started in the video and take a look.
So before we get into the top 10, let's start talking about what I mean when I'm talking about disasters or preparation in general. So it's probably easier to say what I'm not talking about. So this is not the zombie apocalypse. We're not talking about the collapse of civilization as we know it, governments going under, all infrastructure going down and never coming back. That's just not, it's not practical. That's not what we're talking about. When I'm talking about preparing for a disaster, I'm talking about something that's going to interrupt our normal services. So a man-made or natural interruption in service that can last anywhere from 1 to 3 days. And this is what we're actually preparing to be ready for. To frame that out, I'm always tell people that we should plan for no power, no access to running water, no internet, no phones, that includes your cell phones, and limited or no access to the roads. Realistically, is it going to be this bad? Probably not. But, you know, there's a saying that hope is not a good plan. You can't really hope for the best. It's best that you plan for the worst. So from a planning perspective, this is what we're looking at. And again, we're talking 24 to 72 hours, so 1 to 3 days. There's been studies out that have shown that somewhere upwards of 95% of all service interruptions are straightened out within 1 to 3 days. And this is actually not my estimate on time either. This is, if you check, there's a website called ready.gov, and it's FEMA's website, and they have some good information on disaster preparation there. And their beginning framework is that you should plan for just this, for no access to utilities, limited access to roads, and for essentially partially or wholly self-sufficient for anywhere from 1 to 3 days, 24 to 72 hours. So that's the time frame that we're looking at. That's the concept behind what we're going for. So now let's jump into the top 10. So first and foremost, food and water. Naturally the most important thing on the list, because if you don't have sufficient food and water, you're not going to make it very long. Now the good news is odds are pretty strong that you already have this. I mean, it's your house. You have food and water in your house. The conventional wisdom is a person in your house, each adult needs 1 gallon of water per person per day. That's for hydration, sanitation, the whole shoot and match. And again, we're not talking about having to stockpile a lot of water here because, again, you probably already have everything you need, probably in your house as it is. Most people have some cases of bottled water, probably not as many as in this picture, but I mean, that's another story. You might, who am I to judge? But again, bottled water, just cans of stuff around. You have your refrigerator. You most likely have, cans of soda, tea, milk, water in the fridge. So, if you think about it and look around, you probably have enough that if you, for whatever reason, couldn't leave your house, you'd have enough to drink for 1 to 3 days. And you also have to remember that obviously you still have your municipal water supply. You still have the water in your taps. Now, I did say in the initial slide that you want to plan for no access to running water. So this is an interesting quandary here, because theoretically the municipal water system operates mostly on gravity. So even if there's no power and even if there is an interruption in the water service, you're still going to have access to the water system in your tap for a short amount of time. So I'll go into a little more detail on this. So this is the next challenge. I challenge you to the next time that you're out driving around, take a look and see if you could find your water tower in your community. I'll give you a hint, it's probably going to be at the most geographically tallest place, at the place of the highest altitude. And the reasoning behind this is, like I said, the vast amount of the work behind getting water to your house is done by gravity. There are, not to get too deep into the weeds in it, but there are some, for low level areas, there are some pumping stations. There's some pumping stations scattered around your community to maintain the water pressure. But a lot of the work of getting the water from wherever your drinking source is to your house works by gravity. And how that works is, again, your water tower is geographically located at the highest point in your community. So somewhere around that, there is a pump. So typically at night, in the wee hours of the night, when the draw on the water system is the least, and the cost for the utilities, the cost for power to pump the station full, is also the cheapest. So sometime during the night, this pump works and it pumps water into the water tower and fills it up, so that the beginning of the day, the tower is full or mostly full. So when people wake up, they start their day, they start taking a shower, they start using the water system, then it's already there. And then again, the gravity from the tower, since it's higher than anywhere else, pushes it essentially downhill. I mean, again, there's some physics behind it, but it's essentially downhill, and it goes into your house. So, like I said, there's still some areas in a municipal water system that depend on power. So it's not like it's going to quit immediately, but you'll have a little bit of time between the power outage or an interruption in water service and the point in time in which your taps actually stop working. So what do you do in the interim? If you know you're going to be in a situation where you're out of power or there's going to be an interruption in the water supply, start filling up containers. Fill up pots and pans and buckets. The bathtub is a great one. Fill the bathtub up with water. You can always draw out of it. When you go to filling up containers, again, gravity comes into play here. So the taps in the higher levels of your house are going to run out of water first. So if it's coming time to start filling up pots and pans, start at the highest levels of your house. If you're on a 2 or 3 level house, start in the sinks at the very top level and then work your way down, because the taps and the sinks in the very lowest levels are the ones that are going to have water the longest. Eventually they'll run out too, but hopefully by then you'll have a chance to have all of your stuff filled up. So on to food. So just like water, if you go into your pantry now and look around, you probably have enough. I mean, realistically, if you're thinking 1, 2, or 3 days where if worse came to worse and you couldn't leave your house, you're probably in pretty good shape on food. Canned foods are always great. You're going to look for shelf-stable stuff, assuming that you're going to be out of power. You want something that doesn't need a lot of preparation. So you're looking at things like peanut butter, almond butter, any kind of like shelf-stable nut butter things, crackers, pretzels, dry cereal, nuts, trail mix, granola bars, all great ones. Those provide you with a lot of energy. Again, all of these are shelf-stable stuff, so you don't have to worry about them being refrigerated. You don't have to worry about them spoiling. Canned foods have an enormously long shelf life. The average sealed can, assuming there's no damage, will last about 20 years. So you're probably in good shape there. Powdered milk is a great one. Any kind of powdered dairy product like that you can add some water and reconstitute. And one thing that a lot of people don't think of is you also have the option to have apples and oranges, any fruits that you have around that have a particularly long shelf span. You know, bananas may not be the greatest because they tend to go bad after a few days, but apples and oranges, you could keep those for easily a couple, 3 weeks before they start to spoil. Again, shelf stable, they don't require any preparation. You just bite into them. So if you think about it, from a food and water perspective, you probably already have this. You probably already have your 1 to 3 days of food and water in your house Nothing to do, nothing to even bother to stockpile for. The one thing to keep in mind is if you do have canned food, make sure you have a manual can opener, because the worst thing would be to have a great supply of canned goods and the power goes out and you only have an electronic can opener. So that would be a bummer. Manual can openers are super cheap. It's easy enough to have one or two stocked around for hard times. Yeah, a lot of the cans now have the pull tabs on them, but they don't all have them. So check in your pantry and make sure you don't want to be caught short. Now, while we're on the subject of food and water in your house, it's important to talk about your refrigerator. So obviously, when the power goes out, your fridge is going to stop working. Similar to how you still have water for a little bit after the power goes out there, just because the power is out in your fridge doesn't mean that it's instantly going to get warm and spoil everything in there. So you do have some leeway in there. So the key in it, the magic safe temperature is if food stored in a fridge is 40 degrees Fahrenheit or under, that is about I think 4.3 degrees for people out there who don't use freedom units. Food stored under 40 degrees is going to be safe to eat. So the longer that you can keep it there, the better off you're going to be. Typically, the good rule of thumb is in an average household, if the power is out and you don't do anything out of the ordinary, the stuff in your fridge is going to stay at a safe temperature for about 4 hours. There's some things you can do to help increase this. Some of it is environmental. Obviously, if the power goes out and you're in the deep south and it's summer and it's really hot, it's not going to stay safe in there as long as if the power goes out and it's maybe in a cooler month and you're up north when the ambient temperature in your house is not that warm anyway. So something to keep in mind. The first rule of that is if you know the power is out and you have stuff in your fridge, use what you can. Use it, the stuff you have. Maybe you have leftovers in there that you can warm up quick. Things that use minimal or no prep. I mean, realistically, the longer they sit, the more chance they are that they're going to spoil. So yeah, take the stuff that you can and use that first. That should be your first line of defense is any prepared stuff in your fridge that you can just warm up or even eat cold if you had to. Start there before you dip into your supplies of canned goods and dried stuff in your pantry. As far as the fridge goes, keep the door closed as much as you can. Don't open the door and just kind of browse around and try to figure out what you're gonna grab. Have a plan, open the door, grab it and close it and get out. The idea behind that is, if you remember from your high school physics and science classes, cold air is denser than warm air, so cold air falls. So the principle behind it is when you open the door to your fridge, all of that cold air that's in there is going to start essentially falling out onto your floor. So the longer you can keep the door closed, the longer that you're going to be able to maintain a safe temperature on the inside for the food that you have in there. Another little trick is you can pack your fridge and your freezer with ice, just regular bags of ice that you can get from convenience stores. This actually happened to me and my wife at our house. This several years ago. We had a storm with straight line winds move through, took out some trees, fell on a power substation for our city. Our city had no power for about 3 days, hence the preparedness there. But other cities around us still had power, so we could go to neighboring cities, go to convenience stores, buy bags of ice, bring them back home and stuff them in the fridge. Again, the idea is you want to keep the stuff in there as cool as possible for as long as possible. Chest freezers are the same way. Chest freezers are a little different in that obviously the stuff in there, since it's frozen, is going to be held at a lower temperature. So it takes longer for it to reach an unsafe temperature. Another thing about that is, if you notice that since most freezers obviously have doors in the front that open, a lot of chest freezers have a lid on the top that you open and bend down into, so that when you open a chest freezer, you're not losing as much of the cool air. Still, you want to have the idea in mind that, obviously keep the door closed as much as you can. You can also pack a freezer with ice, as strange as that sounds. Anything that you want to do to keep the temperatures in there as cool as possible for as long as possible. Now, since things in a freezer are kept at a cooler temperature. You've got 24 hours, 12 hours, depending on how full the freezer is and where it sets. I mean, again, if you have your freezer, your chest freezer in your garage and it's in the 40s outside, it's going to stay in there. It's going to stay cool in there pretty a, a longer time than if you had it in your house and it was, again, summer down south and it was 90 degrees outside. Food in a freezer is considered to be safe if you can crack it open, break it open, cut it in two, and still see ice crystals inside. As long as you see that, that food is still good to eat. And when I'm talking about using what you have, use the stuff out of your fridge first. Even if you don't have power, but you have a barbecue or you have a camp stove, fire that up. You can use that to cook food. Believe me, when there's something out there, when disaster strikes and you're essentially living out of your pantry, a good warm meal can go a long way. It makes you feel better. It raises morale. I mean, again, you probably already have your grill. If you're a camper, you may already have a camp stove. So this is a great way to use the stuff that you can, and still, even stuff that requires minimum prep, you can still have hot meals. So you're not necessarily just, eating cold beans out of a can for every meal of your day. The big key is when we're talking about safe temperatures on food, if you have any doubt whether food is safe or not, throw it out. When in doubt, throw it out. The last thing that you want to have happen is to try something, give yourself food poisoning, give yourself botulism or something, and then you're either going to have to tax the emergency system by having to call an ambulance and come get you, or try to add to the traffic on the roads. The roads may be impassable, it may not be safe, and you might be trying to get to the ER yourself. You don't want to become part of the problem. So again, if there's any doubt in any of the food that you have, just throw it out. It's safer to just not have it around than to take the chance of making yourself sick and making things worse. If there is a real disaster out there, believe me, the emergency personnel are going to be working as hard as they can on, for lack of a better term, they're going to be working as hard as they can on the real issue. They don't need someone, you don't need to make yourself part of the problem by just making things worse. So number 2, methods of communication. So again, these are things that you probably already have in your house. Communication is obvious. I mean, naturally, food and water are important because it keeps you alive, but you want to know when there's something going on, you'll want to know what's actually happening. What kind of disaster was it? If there are news that you need to be kept briefed on, if there, anything like that, any information that's out there. And it's just as important to know where your family is. Disasters never occur on a schedule, so you're not going to be able to put this in your calendar and make sure that everybody's home when something bad happens. You could be at work, your spouse could be at home, your kids could be at school, you could be in different places. So one of the key things is you got to know where everybody is. You have to be able to communicate. Communication is key. It's not hard. One of the things that, if you watched my video on the building a $25 go bag, one of the things that I stress in there is making an emergency contact list. This is just a hard copy of information for the people in your house that you're responsible for. It's easy stuff. It's just name, their phone numbers, any way that you have to get in contact with them. So cell phone, landlines, if if they work in an office and they have a phone on their desk, or if they're at school, the number for the school. Essentially, any way that you have to get in hold of these people when they're not around you. Everyone in your house should have one. It should always be a hard copy, and they should always have it with them. The idea behind that is, if you're trying to reach someone and maybe for whatever reason, you don't have your phone, you don't have access to your phone, you still have the ability to get the information out there and get in touch with them. And it doesn't have to be anything outrageous. We're just talking simple stuff like, you'll want to know if someone's not at your house, where are they? Are they safe? And then you make the judgment call of whether they should stay there or try to get home. I mean, essentially, that's that's the primary level of communication. You just want to make sure that everyone that you're responsible for, that you know where they are and that they're okay. And then from there, you can plan. Good old-fashioned radio. Now, you probably got these laying around. If you don't, you can easily get one cheap enough. But I mean, pretty much everyone has one in your house, in your garage, in the closet. If something goes down, if a disaster strikes in your area, this is the primary way of getting information that is going to be current and up to date. If you don't have power, your TV is not going to work. If you have batteries, your radio is still going to work. So you probably want to look for if you have talk stations out there, stations where usually it's AM, where there's just a bunch of guys and all they do is just rattle on all day. These are going to be key because these are the stations that are going to essentially be co-opted and start giving you as much information as you can. They'll tell you what's going on. They'll tell you the situation around you. If it's a weather event, you'll be able to get information there. If God forbid it gets bad enough that there has to be evacuations, these are where you get this information from. It would also be a good idea to make sure that your radio has what's called a NOAA weather band, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. Essentially, this is a special band that's outside of the normal AM and FM band, and 24/7, 365. When there's no emergency, when there's no weather event, it just broadcasts your weather forecast for your area over and over again all the time. If there are severe weather events, then they start to give information on those specific weather events. So that's a great way to keep in touch. If you're looking to buy a radio, make sure that it has a weather band on it. It'll say on the packaging, it'll say on the box, or you could look on the dial. There'll be a special setting for the NOAA weather. Other than that, you can also listen to your local radio on your cell phone. The area that my family is in is all of the radio stations, or most of them, are part of the iHeartRadio media conglomerate. So I can download the iHeartRadio app on my cell phone and listen to my local radio stations without having a radio. This is nice because if nothing else, it's one less thing to have to carry around. You install the app on your phone, and if you're away from your house, if you're away from where your radio is, you still have access to all of that communication. And again, if you're going to be using your phone for the radio or as a means of communication, it's probably a good idea to have some type of backup phone charger for it, just a battery pack for your cell phone. Once again, this is most likely something that you've already got laying around your house. If not, you can pick these up on Amazon for under $10. They are a lifesaver because, again, if your power is out for 3 days, I don't know about your phone, but my phone and my battery in my phone does not last for 3 days. So power pack for your phone gives you the opportunity to extend the life of your cell phone and extend your means of communication for the 3 days, possibly longer. So a little bonus to this. This is what's known as an uninterruptible power supply, or a UPS. Essentially, it's a big battery in a box that plugs into the wall, and then you plug things into it. Once the battery is charged up, when power goes out, any device that is plugged into it will run off of that battery power for there's the physics that you get into, but it depends on what you have plugged into it as to how long it will run. The idea behind this is I like the idea of using it for, using it for your Wi-Fi router and your cable modem. So the idea behind it is if the internet is still working, but the only reason that you can't get to it is because you don't have power, if your router and your cable modem are plugged into this, then you'll still have access to the internet. You'll still have access to Wi-Fi. That's important because, I mean, most of the devices that you have anymore, tablets and laptops and stuff, they need power to charge up, but they don't need power to run. It's not like a desktop computer that has to have power to be on. So you could still potentially have access to the internet, the communication that comes with that, for quite a while, actually. I mean, these UPSs were designed to initially hold servers up. So some of them can be incredibly large. They don't all have to be. Again, like I have on here, I've seen some available at big box retailers and on Amazon and places like that for under $100. These are designed to hold computers up. So, you figure that your wireless router and your cable modem are going to have a really small power draw. A good UPS will easily keep them up for the 3 days that we're going to assume for the service interruption. So it's a nice bonus because this way it increases the amount of communication that you have and plus it's just nice to be able to still have your devices going. Number 3, flashlights. So we probably all have a bunch of flashlights laying around. Um, they're stuck in drawers. They're sitting in the garage. They're probably in closets. Round them up, take them out, make sure that they all have batteries. Uh, when the power goes out, that's going to be your lights. The advantage of, not the advantage, but an alternative to that is these LED lanterns. I prefer the LEDs versus the old camp lanterns with the mantles that actually light because obviously those are a fire hazard. Um, Flashlights are great if you need to shine a light on one particular thing. The LED lanterns are great if you have a couple of those set up. You can light up a room. Um, and again, LED lights come in all shapes and sizes. They have little ones that can stick up. I mean, all shapes and sizes, all capacities. These are great for, again, when the power goes out and you just need to see where you're going. The main thing to remember is they all run on batteries. So if you have any flashlights in your house right now, I recommend that you check to make sure that the batteries that are in them are still good and that you buy a bunch more of obviously the appropriate kinds and just keep them on hand because it's great to have flashlights, but if the power goes out and the batteries in them are dead, that's not really helpful. So, but again, great things to have. You probably already have a bunch laying around. All right, for number 4, uh, just some basic tools. This is something that even if you're even if you're not a homeowner, you should have just a basic tool set around. The idea is you're going to want to be able to make some basic on the spot, some simple on the spot repairs. The idea or the thinking behind it is, if a storm moves through and blows a tree branch through your window or damages your roof or something like that, damages your door so that it doesn't close all the way, you want to be able to do some repairs to it yourself with what you have on hand and not have to wait for a handyman to come in because if a storm moves through and you have a window that's busted out, you're going to wait a long time to have a handyman come out and put it in when it's something that you can take care of on your own and, basically prevent some damage to your house. So you don't need a lot of tools and you don't need super expensive ones. Just your basic toolkit, a couple of screwdrivers, make sure you have some straight and Phillips head, a hammer, a pair of pliers, and a utility knife. You probably don't need much past that. If you have more than that, great. If you have less than that, then I recommend that you go to your local big box hardware store and pick up just the most basic toolkit you can find. You're going to pay probably $25, maybe $30 for it, but the stuff that you get when you need it, it's going to be very handy. If you already have tools, don't shy away from the battery operated ones. The battery operated tools are great because once you get into a platform, you can have a bunch of tools that use the same type of battery. This is great because it eliminates you from having to buy a bunch of different batteries, which would be expensive. But it is also nice because a lot of these battery platforms have non-tool related things that take the batteries. By that I mean I've seen fans, I've seen lights, I've seen radios. All of these are really beneficial for you in a disaster situation because if if the power goes out and your air conditioning goes out, you can take the batteries from your tools and run some fans. You know, if the power goes out and it's dark, you can run these lights. So super handy with that. And if nothing else, just a good pair of work gloves, because if you're gonna be out and doing this stuff, you want something to protect your hands. Going back to what I've said about the food safety, you don't want to go out and try to repair like a broken window, let's say, and then cut yourself and then have to call 911. Again, you want to become part of your solution. You don't need to add to the problem of what's already going on. So a basic set of tools, I mean, again, a lot of this stuff is you probably already have it. Maybe you have a junk drawer laying around with a bunch of this stuff in it. That's a good place to look. Now, while we're on the subject of tools, like I said, you're going to want to be able to do some simple repairs around the house. So to do that, you're probably going to need some just stuff, some tarps, some plastic sheets, some different sizes, pieces of wood. I guess that the premise behind it is if you've got a garage or a workshop and it kind of looks like this, that maybe people are saying, hey, that's really messy. You should probably clean that out. No, no, no. From a disaster perspective, this is a good thing. This is what you want because you've got the stuff that you need. You can go down, grab a board, grab some plastic sheeting, patch a hole in your roof, board up a window real quick. You'll need those jars of random screws and nails. Perfect for this because, again, you want it to be effective. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to work. And when we get into the what I like to call the holy trinity of disaster preparation, duct tape, tarps, and zip ties. These are things that nobody should be without. They should be. I recommend people put them in their go bags. I think they're obviously great to have around the house. I could do a video on this subject itself and make it an hour long because there's so many ways that you can use this stuff. A million and one uses. Uh, if you need stuff stuck to something else, if you need stuff strapped down, you can use a tarp and duct tape to make simple repair. If you have a window out, some duct tape and a plastic sheet. If you have a hole in your roof, a tarp and a tarp and some nails. But I mean, again, tarps are great if you need to cover something up to keep it from getting wet, to wrap something up in it. Duct tape and zip ties are great for holding things together. You're never going to be disappointed by having this. Hopefully, these are all things that you have in your house already. If not, you should definitely have all of these. I mean, again, this is like the ultimate in prepping hardware right here. And while we're on the subject of tools and what to do with them, you're going to want to know where your utility shutoffs are. So you're going to want to know where your main breaker box for your power is, where your main the main cutoff for the water as it comes into your house, and the main cutoff for the gas as it comes into your house. This is the idea being, if something happens to any of these, you're going to need to know how to turn it off. If something happens to your house, a room gets damaged, there's a short going on in there, you're going to want to know how to turn your power off. You're not going to want to wait, try to call an electrician and have them come out. Same with your water and gas. If there is a problem and you need to turn it off, you need to turn it off immediately. So it's a good idea, if you don't know where these are, to find out as quickly as you can. Know where they are, be able to find them in the dark, especially your circuit breaker, because again, it's important to know where they are. It's important to know how to cut them off. And for a bonus on this is a bonus tool that you might not have, but you probably should have. So this is sold in a bunch of different ways. This particular one is labeled as a 4-in-1 emergency tool. It can be used as a pry bar, a digging tool. The key is those little slots in the middle can be used to fit right on the cutoff for your gas supply for your house. The big bonus behind this is the fact that these tools are made, the one I have is made out of, I think, an aluminum alloy. The key is it's made of a non-sparking material. So, the last thing you want when you're fumbling around trying to turn your gas off if there's a gas leak is to cause a spark. That's going to guarantee that you have a bad time. So if you don't have one of these, I recommend you pick one up. I've found them on Amazon for about under $20. So it's a great thing to have, and it's a nice little bonus in the tool category. Number 5, first aid kit. Once again, this is something that you probably already have. Even if it's not a formal kit, you've got some stuff. You have some Band-Aids, you have some, antibacterial wipes. The key really is not what you have, it's that you know how to use it. So regardless of how big or small the kit is, find it, see what's in there, make sure you know what's in there. You don't need to be fumbling around your first aid kit wondering if you have gauze or anything like that. You should know what's in there. Most of the stuff in there, you don't have to worry necessarily about shelf life, but while you're checking, it's a good idea to make sure that you have enough stuff. It's real easy to get into the thing of, oh, I have Band-Aids in the first aid kit, and then you use one, and a couple months later you use another one, and then a few months later you use another one, and then when it gets down to it, then you're out. So, check your supplies in it. But again, the key is know what you have and know how to use what you have. And I'm not saying that you have to be trained as a combat medic. I'm just saying basic first aid. If you haven't taken one, there are classes out there from what's called the Stop the Bleeds Coalition. And these are fantastic classes because they train you on usage of tourniquets and what's compression bandages. These are there's no exaggeration, these are two life-saving things. They stop heavy or hemorrhagic bleeding. Again, you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be EMT or a medic to be able to work these. The class is free. It's about an hour. And to coin the phrase, the life you save might be your own. These are great things to have, great knowledge to have. So if you don't have those in your first aid kit, I would strongly recommend that you find a Stop the Bleed class, take it, absorb that knowledge, and then get yourself one, and then stock your first aid kits appropriately with them. So we're halfway through the top 10. This is the point where I take a break, and thank you for sticking with me this long. Hopefully you found some good information. Then if you have, feel free to drop me a comment. Also, if anything that I've said along here has been valuable to you, I appreciate the subscription to the channel. Anything that you do, subscribing, liking videos, leaving comments, any of that helps feed the algorithm, and it also helps me know what kind of content that you'd like to see in the future. Anything you can do like that helps the channel. So moving on. Number 6, sanitation and hygiene. So again, this should be real easy because, again, this is your house. So you most likely already have everything you need. You've got all your sanitation supplies. You've got shampoo, you have soap, you have toothbrushes, you have toothpaste, you have deodorant, you have mouthwash. It's all there. Again, if you're assuming that there's not going to be power or water, you could still be able to wash up. You may not have hot water to do it with, which could make it a little frustrating. But realistically, you're going to have everything you need to be able to stay clean and to stay feeling like a human. And a little addendum here, I have had people ask me this before, even if you have no power in your house and no running water, your toilet will still work. Toilets work off physics and gravity. So as long as there's water in the tank in the back, it will flush when you push the handle. So you don't have to feel like you have to do the camp solution and get a bucket with kitty litter and make that your toilet if the power and water's out. You'll still be fine. What I've known people to do before is, when I was talked earlier about what to do about the food and water. If you fill up your bathtub, typically your bathtub is either next to or close to your toilet, then you can just take a pan, take water from that, pour in the back of the tank, and then again, as long as the tank's full and you push the handle, your toilet's going to flush. So, good knowledge to have. Number 7, warm clothes and blankets. I mean, again, this is your house. You've got closets full of clothes. You've got closets full of blankets. This is important because, I mean, again, a disaster is never going to happen when you schedule it. They very rarely happen when it's nice. If your power goes out and it's cold, that means your furnace is not going to work. And so unless you have some type of supplemental heat that doesn't require power, it could get chilly in your house. The easiest way to make it through that, especially if you know it's only going to be a few days, is just bundle up. I mean, again, I have gone through this personally. We've had a power outage that lasted for about 3 days, and it happened to be early November when it happened. So the outside temperature was in the 40s. House temperature, I mean, it would dip down into the 50s. We just wore extra clothes and sat around with blankets. So an easy one. And again, this is stuff that I guarantee that you already have all of this. Not a thing that you need to go and buy. Number 8, prescription medication. So if you take any type of prescription medication, you should always have at least a 7-day supply on hand. The idea being that if there is a disaster and you have to be partially or wholly self-sufficient, you might not be able to get out onto the road to get to the pharmacy. If your prescriptions are delivered to you, there might be an interruption in the delivery service. There might be an interruption in the supply chain. Some medication can have life-threatening side effects if you don't take it every day. So you need to make sure that you have a sufficient supply on hand. Again, you probably already do. It could be as easy as when you get close to a refill, maybe talk to your doctor and saying, hey, can you just refill this a week early for me so that I have a sufficient supply here. Same goes with glasses. If you wear glasses like I do, it's always beneficial to maybe when you have to get a new pair, just keep your old pair, stick it in a drawer somewhere where you know where it is. You may not see as great out of them as you would with brand new ones, but you'd see much better than if you didn't have them at all. I don't know about you, but if I don't have my glasses, I cannot see a thing. So it's always important to have spare pair of glasses, also some extra contacts on hand if you wear those. Same reason you might not be able to get to your eye doctor, you might not be able to get the delivery for new ones in. So if you have spares on hand, you're going to be quite well off. Number 9, you should have some cash on hand. The reasoning behind this is if the power is out, ATMs are going to be down. If there are stores that are able to be open, they're not going to be able to do any type of credit card processing because all of that requires power and or the internet. So they're most likely going to be operating on a cash only basis. You don't have to have much, a couple $100 just in different size, probably smaller bills, but that will at least enable you to be able to do some business and buy things even if the stores are not able to process credit card payments. And again, like I said, most likely definitely if the power is out, you're not going to find a functioning ATM. And number 10, books and games. So the idea behind this is once you've gotten everybody safe, you've gotten everybody taken care of, essentially once the initial rush of the disaster is over, there's a lot of times where you just sit around and there's nothing to do. And with no power and possibly no internet, there's no TV, there's no tablets, you're going to have to go old school on it as to what you can do. I know that a lot of people take this opportunity to have like an impromptu family game night. So board games are great to have. Puzzle books, crossword puzzles, anything like that. Catch up on your reading. It's a great time great time to take care of the stuff of your I want to read list that you just never had a chance to. You're probably going to have several hours of just sitting around and nothing else to do. And if you're older like I am, you'll be able to remember back in the old days when there wasn't internet at your fingertips and you didn't have TV and radio. You had to find a way to make do. Oh, and this book. Hey, I'm glad you asked. So yes, this is actually my book. This is one that I wrote. It is a disaster preparation guide, much like what we talk about on this channel. And with this one, I frame it as you're preparing for, it's a disaster preparation guide, but it's framed around you're preparing for the zombie apocalypse, which allows me to lay out in there scenarios that scale. So you start out with like what we're talking about now, getting ready for a disaster or a service interruption that can last up to 3 days. And then it steps you through how to expand on that so that you prepared for anything from 3 days to a week to a few weeks to a month or more. It is available on Amazon in physical and digital format, and it is also available on my website, thethriftyprepper.com. Any books purchased through my website will be signed before they're sent out, and that service is no additional charge. And to wrap it up, the bonus for this is for what to do if you have pets. So the big thing to remember is pets, just like small kids, they don't understand when a disaster happens that it's just this temporary thing. They don't, it's all, for them, it's all new. Pets obviously can feed off of our energy. So if you're stressed out about it, your pets are going to be stressed out about it. So we go through the steps to try to keep them as warm and safe and secure as possible. So you want to make sure that they have plenty of bedding, plenty of food, plenty of treats for them. They have ways that they can stay warm. I mean, in general, if they're only going to want to be around you. When we had the time that our power was out, neither of us could sit down on a couch without a dog or two sitting with us, which is great because it makes them feel better to be around you too. One thing that is kind of key to have is I recommend people have all of the, like if your pet's information, that information, pet adoption information, anything like that, their vaccination information, all of that should be kept with your important documents in your emergency contact list. That way you have that in case anything happens and you need it and you don't have access to your house. It's also key to have pictures of you with your pet. The idea behind that is this will help you be able to establish ownership. Your pets should be microchipped, should be tagged, but just in case, it never hurts to be able to have some proof that, yeah, I'm at the pound, I'm at the shelter picking up this dog. It's actually mine, and here I can prove it. So a little bonus to help keep our furry friends safe and as calm and collected as going through this as we are, because again, like I said, they don't get it. They don't know that this is just a thing that's going to blow through and pass on. So for them, it can be very stressful, and it's our job to kind of help that make sure that it's not that stressful for them.
All right, so there you go. That's my top 10 prepping items, things that you probably already had in your house. You noticed I threw a couple of bonuses in there. None of them are really expensive, but they're good things to have around. So first off, if you stuck around this long in the video, thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully that you've gleaned some information. You found something that's going to be handy for you. If you have, please consider leaving a like on the video, subscribing to my channel, leave me a comment down below if you think I missed anything or if you think that there's some things that you could add to the list. Also in the comments below is the link to basically my merch store. It's thethriftyprepper.com. You can get copies of my book that I talked about. You can get copies of this, Hope is Not a Good Plan. I have it in a hoodie and a crew neck and t-shirts. I've got a few other merch designs in there. That's an awesome way to support the channel. It's a way to let me know that you appreciate what I'm doing. So again, thanks again for sticking around, and until next time, if you are ready, you don't have to get ready. See you next time.